everyone, my name's Ben Stockley. I've been fishing Chesil for I reckon 35 years now, since I was 7. It's a great place to fish. I know a lot of people find it difficult when they're travelling because it's quite vast. It's 18 miles long. It's a job to know where to go sometimes, but this time of year probably, in my opinion, outfishes the winter time now. We've got so many different species. We've got everything from big fish like rays and smooth hounds through to plaice, stabs, gurnards. The bream will be starting to show soon. It's mid-June now, another few weeks. And if you cast out 2 or a 3 hook rig with a variety of different baits, it just, for me, is so exciting because you never quite know what's going to pick your baits up. Quite often you'll bring in a plaice, a gurnard on the same rig, or whatever's swimming past, but a really fantastic place to fish in the summer, in my opinion. Winter time's still good. The cod fishing's obviously slowed down a little bit these days, although indications are it might be a little bit better this year. We're seeing some small fish showing through the summer months, which is promising. But the last few years, the winter fishing has pretty much been raised. That's been the mainstay. So for me, the summer just gives you that extra variety in terms of fish to target. So for me, one of the most important things with the summer fishing is quality of bait and the right baits. For me, if you're going for a mixed bag and you want to catch as many different species as possible, I would certainly have some peeler crab with me, whether that's fresh or frozen. As long as it's good quality frozen, won't make too much difference. Ragworm's always a good bait to have with you. I would always bring a frozen mackerel. These days you can't rely too much on catching fresh, but sometimes a little bit of ragworm up the line, tipped off with a little bit of mackerel, fresh or frozen, that can sort out a lot of different summer species. Things like the gurnards and the bream in particular, they find that really attractive. If I was coming down to the western end of the beach, obviously with the warmer water temperatures, the crab are quite active. There's a lot of shrimps and things out there as well, which tend to take the softer baits off, like ragworm, quite quickly. So when you're targeting plaice in the summer months, quite often black lug can be quite effective, either in a combination with ragworm or on its own, just purely because you can whip it on nice and tight and it's a little bit tougher, lasts that little bit extra on the bottom. So if I was going Abbotsbury westwards looking for plaice, I would certainly be sort of taking some blacks with me this time of year. And then obviously fishing into the evening time as the light starts to go. June is a very, very good time to catch rays. For that, if you can catch a fresh mackerel, you've got a massive advantage. It's a fantastic bait for catching rays on Chesil. Either along the side of a sand eel, a little strip whipped on, or on its own, works an absolute treat. That would be my kind of go-to ray bait really on Chesil in the summer months, I would say. Right guys, so another small Chesil Beach plaice, which unfortunately has swallowed the hook very deeply. Now most of you will have seen this already done, but there is a way of actually removing the hook without causing too much harm to the fish. All you need is a pair of these, and what you can do is go, oh, it's a very lively one, is go in through the gills very gently, out through the mouth, grab hold of your line, pull that back through, he says. There we go. And then what you can do, if you pull on that gently, it turns the hook round, gently wiggle it out. And then once you've got the hook in your hand, if you then grip it with the forceps, again, you can very gently, without touching the red part of the gill, push it out through the mouth. And what you'll find is there's no damage to the fish's gills, there's no blood, still nice and lively, and he'll go back to fight another day. So a lot of people will just turn up at Chesil ad hoc because it's a very easy venue to fish in terms of the fact that you can fish it at any state of the tide, low or high, mid-tide, whatever. It's not going to be like the Bristol Channel where, it's unfishable at certain times. So My advice would be though is just to plan your trip a little bit. In the summer, obviously, I mean, we're on the beach today, it's been 24, 25 degrees. Fishing through that middle part of the day when it's scorching hot, bright blue sky, gin clear water, it's going to be tough at this time of year. So I would always aim to start fishing about 6 or 7 o'clock as that sun starts to dip down a little bit and into dark itself. And if you can combine that with a high water that's quite late, so about a 10 p.m. high water, what you'll find is, particularly the western end of the beach, you'll start to get tide run about 3 hours before to about 3 hours after. So that really is a massive advantage. If you've got some movement in the water, you'll always find the fishing is much better than fishing over slack. So as a general rule of thumb, I would say the western end, I would say 3 hours either side of high is a really good time. Over low, it's a little bit more complicated. So on the big tides, you'll probably get run about an hour and a half before low to about 3 hours afterwards. On the very small tides, you might not get much run over low until low itself, and then about 3 hours after. So fishing the Portland end, you get slightly longer periods of tide runs. So if you had a larger tide, for example, and you're fishing around Ferry Bridge, you will actually start to get flow about 4.5 hours before the top of the tide to about 3 back. So potentially you've got 7.5 hours of really good fishing. Again, with the deeper water that end, sometimes you will get more fish through the middle of the day, even when it's hot and bright, but I would still say early mornings and evenings are going to provide more fish. So that would be my advice really there. So casting wise on Chesil, obviously very deep water close in, whole plethora of different species to go for. I would say generally those that struggle on yards, places like Cogden for example, the clay beds are a little bit closer in there than they are at the likes of Bexington and Abbotsbury. So you will find if you're going after things like plaice and you're maybe just getting into the sport, still learning, Cogden might be a good starting point. The Ferry Bridge end as well for the summer species, so bream and gurnards and things like that, 70-80 yards is enough to put you in amongst fish, particularly sort of in the evening times. Again, gin clear water, middle of the day, baking hot, it's usually the better casters that'll pick up more fish right the way along Chesil, and certainly things like the rays will favour those that have got a bit longer chuck on them, but don't let that put you off. There's still plenty of fish to catch on Chesil even if you're just getting into the sport. Just fish at the right time of day.